Yeah, let's talk about the Blockbuster Colorado deal. This has not gone down very well. Colorado made a massive three-team trade that involved Carolina and the Chicago Blackhawks. And Carolina winds up getting 25 goal scorer Mikko Rantanan. He's got 25 goals already. He's on track for a 50-goal season. And he asked for in excess of $14 million in Colorado. He's about to be a free agent. He wanted more than Nathan MacKinnon's getting. And the Avalanche said no. And it just became a real friction point, and they just gave up. And they traded him in a package deal. Now, they got some pretty good young players. They had Martin Necas. They got a second and fourth round draft pick Colorado did. That changes the chemistry of an Avalanche team, and it really helps Carolina because Carolina also got veteran Taylor Hall. He came from the Blackhawks as part of that deal, and he's got 275 career goals. Some of this is cap-driven. It's a blockbuster deal, but I think it really impacts the Colorado Avalanche chemistry. The other trade is we're waiting to see. The toxicity of what's gone on in Vancouver is just really hard to believe. Their two highest paid players are just not teammates. JT Miller is earning $8 million. Elias Pettersson is averaging $11 million. Neither one is scoring to the degree they've scored in the past. Vancouver, which was the shiny object during the playoffs last spring, just fallen on really hard times. They're not winning games at home, and they're not playing very well together, and they're trying to make a trade. They're trying to move somebody. They thought they had JT Miller going to the New York Rangers, thought maybe they had a deal Miller go to Carolina. He's the veteran guy, got suspended by the coach Rick Tocchet about a month ago for an explosion on the bench. Those two players just for some reason don't coexist very well, and the team is just staggering out there, and they got high cap numbers. So keep an eye on that. Somebody's leaving Vancouver. It's just real toxic chemistry situation. Isn't it, the chemistry in rooms in the NHL and to a degree, I think in the NBA is so fragile. Slightest things set these guys off.
Well, it's ego, and prima donna and all that. They've kind of factors into it. And there's so much money on the line, and so much exposure. But you're talking about blockbuster trades in the NHL. You have a long history in hockey. What are some of the biggest trades you remember? I mean, I remember, of course, Gretzky from the Oilers to the Kings, but were there other super big ones?
Yeah, well, the first one that I ever came across, and I was really young, I couldn't believe it. Boston Bruins traded Bobby Orr. Bobby Orr, greatest defenseman of all time, greatest offensive defenseman of all time. And he was the first one that went out the door, and he wound up in Chicago, but he was at the tail end of his career because of chronic knee problems. But that was a shocker. And then Phil Esposito got traded. Boston and the New York Rangers and Chicago are always doing these deals. And north of the border, Frank Mahovlich, who was a legend with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And it was a trade with Toronto and Montreal, and they hated each other. So, yeah, there have always been deals. The Gretzky deal was beyond belief that this could ever happen. But that's because the owner, Nelson Scalabrini, had terrible money problems, was a terrible business owner, and Bruce McNall, who, by the way, wound up going to prison, the owner of the LA Kings, made the mega deal to get Gretzky to come to Los Angeles. And then we know the history of how good the Kings gotten, and the Kings, went to the Stanley Cup and won it. So those historically are the biggest trades of all time. But the Bobby Orr trade to me was, I was young. I said, how is that possible? That's like if you traded Willie Mays or you traded Mickey Mantle. Mm-hmm. You traded Bobby Orr? You kidding me?
It's like, trading your mother, That's nuts.
Well, in some cases, that's not bad. Okay, that's all things hockey. Hockey Hotline is open for the O Canada Network. If you've got an opinion, I'd love to hear what the O Canada gang has to say about the toxicity of what's going on in Vancouver. And if you got a response on this Colorado Avalanche trade, feel free to jump on board.